Welcome to Fan for Racing Radio. I am Fan for Racing Sharon, and Jay Huseman is joining me today. And we are here for the Atlanta preview for the NASCAR Cup Series, Jay.
Well, and it's going to be, it may not be a local short track showdown, but it is going to be Saturday night, as we pointed out. So looking forward to it. A lot of different things going on at Echo Park Speedway in Atlanta this weekend.
Yes, indeed. Have you looked at the entry list yet?
I have, and I heard this all week. It is a full field. We have 40 teams and drivers for these spots listed. And not to bring up a really sore subject, but have you heard anything on whether 2311 and front row are going to be open teams or not? I hadn't heard the final call-up. Okay.
That may I haven't been checking that out either. We'll have to check that out and see if we
that may change. Yeah, that may change with some answers that were supposed to come through the court systems today, I believe. So as it is right now, the open teams are the number 01, which is a Rick Ware racing machine. That'll be Corey LaJoie back in the penny stacking .01 if you want to get technical. David Starr is in the number 66 for MBM. The number 78 will be BJ McLeod. And then in, I believe it's a track house, number 87, Connor Zilic. And we know what a tear he's been on as of late, making another Cup Series start in that number 87 with Trackhouse Racing. So full field, regardless. Now, like I said, 2311 and Front Row Motorsports may end up running this race and here on out as open teams. We got to wait and see on court decisions for that. That won't affect it. At this point, it won't affect anybody going home because there is only the 40.
Yeah, I don't see anything. I do see that Joey Logano's been nominated for Best Driver Award in the 2025 ESPYs for this year. So keep your eye on that.
That's great for Joey Logano, and I know it does a lot for the foundation and his program that he has with that. So that's always good publicity.
Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and cover the Quaker State 400 available at Walmart at Echo Park Speedway this Saturday. They are racing on the 1.54 mile asphalt paved oval, but it races like a super speedway. And Saturday, June 28th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, this starts with TNT, so that's where you'll find the coverage this week starting at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, as well as radio coverage on PRN and SiriusXM NASCAR Channel 90. They will race a distance of 400.4 miles over 260 laps. Stage 1 will be 60 laps. Ending on lap 60. The next stage, stage 2, is 100 laps, ending on lap 160. And then the final stage is another 100 laps, ending on lap 260 for this NASCAR Cup Series race. Now, the Cup Series will have their Busch Light pole qualifying on Friday. That's today, June the 27th. And that'll be on True TV, PRN, and SiriusXM at 5 p.m. Eastern Time Friday. Now, the Saturday, the NASCAR Cup Series race will be, again, available on TNT, True TV, HBO Max for the driver camera view, PRN, and SiriusXM at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So a lot to cover here in the NASCAR Cup Series, Jay.
There is. It's not quite as crunch time as the Truck Series, but we are down under 10. Just 9 Cup Series regular season races remain here in the playoffs. So it's getting time to start getting serious.
It does indeed. Now, this weekend marks the 123rd running of the NASCAR Cup Series at Echo Park Speedway. They've been racing there since 1960, and the 7th Atlanta race on the new surface and configuration.
Now, again, it is called Echo Park Speedway now, but when we look at Atlanta, it's held 2 races a year from 1960 to 2010. except in 1961 when there were 3 races held there. Then Atlanta went to 1 race a year from 2011 to 2020. Starting back in 2021, it once again hosted 2 races per year.
Beginning in 2023, both Atlanta races were shortened to 400 miles. So it's been shorter since 23, but that doesn't mean that there isn't less action.
Not at all. With it, as you said, a hybrid type style track now, kind of races like a super speedway. And with that, in 4 of the last 6 Atlanta races, the final stage had 5 or more cautions, including the last 3. I think that plays into it.
Yes, it does. Now, the driver who led the most laps won the first 3 races at Atlanta in the drafting track configuration. Yet in the last 4 races, they have not finished any better than 10th. So that's kind of an interesting stat.
When you're looking at possible winners, this one's an interesting one, as Christopher Bell led only the final lap in his win at Atlanta in February, which was the fewest for an Atlanta winner since September 1961, going all the way back of David Pearson.
Okay, now the race winner didn't lead for the first time until lap 167 or later in each of the last 4 Atlanta races. So that's something to keep your eye on this weekend for determining a race winner.
It certainly is. And the 7 races on this new track configuration has had a combined 65 cautions. That's an average of 9.2 per race. The 7 races prior to that change had a total combined of only 33 cautions, so about double.
Yes, indeed. Now, the final green flag stretch was 5 laps or less in 5 of the last 6 Atlanta races.
And 4 of the 7 races on this new Atlanta have ended under caution. So again, you mentioned it, a little bit racier, a little more aggression, and a lot of factors come into that. We'll talk more about that in a little while.
It's a fast track. Now, the pass for the win came in the final 2 laps in 5 of the last 6 Atlanta races, and on the final lap in 3 of the last 5 races there.
Now, here's some interesting things when we're looking at it. It goes to the manufacturer with the horsepower. Ford has won the pole for all 5 races on the drafting track configuration at Atlanta.
Ford also won 9 of the last 10 stages at Atlanta.
And one of those is Ryan Blaney in the Penske Ford, finished in the top 10 in the last 6 Atlanta races, which is the longest active streak at the track and his longest active streak at any single track.
So I like those stats. Now, Kyle Busch finished top 10 in all 5 races at Atlanta with Richard Childress Racing, his most at a track since moving to that number 8 car at RCR. And
I just told you I'd switch that as one of my picks. How about that? Now I got to rethink it again. Now, Kyle Larson failed to finish 5 of the 7 races at Atlanta due to accident.
That's unfortunate. Now, a total of 50 different drivers have won at Atlanta in the Cup Series. This weekend, 9 of the 50 Echo Park Speedway race winners are entered in the event. Now, there's 4 drivers here that have 2 wins at the track. Joey Logano in 23 and 24, so the most recent. Then you've got in 22 and 23, William Byron. In 17 and 19, it was Brad Keselowski. And in 2008 and 13, it was Kyle Busch. Now, drivers that have 1 win there, the most recent winner earlier this year in February was Christopher Bell. Then Daniel Suarez in 24, Chase Elliott in 22, Ryan Blaney in 21, and Denny Hamlin goes back to 2012.
Well, we already hit one of Kyle Larson's unfortunate stats, and it totals because his average finish of 26.0 at Atlanta is his worst among all tracks with multiple starts in this next-gen era.
Ooh, we got to check that out against the in-season challenge.
I was looking. I know. I was looking at mine. He's matched up against Tyler Reddick, which I still think it favors Larson, but
we'll see how that works out. Okay, now William Byron with 2, Joey Logano with 2 are the only repeat winners in the 7 drafting track configuration races at Atlanta, and we covered that just a little bit earlier.
We talked about the Ford and Team Penske. Since 2023, Team Penske has led 1,060 laps on drafting tracks. That's more than 3 times the laps led by any other team.
Interesting. Hendrick Motorsports, though, leads all teams with 6 wins on drafting tracks in the next-gen era. But did they come at Atlanta?
Right. Well, I'll go back to Team Penske, as it's the only team with 3 different drivers to win at a drafting style track in the next-gen era.
Now, with Austin Cindric's win at Talladega, Team Penske has won at least once on a drafting track in 12 straight seasons, and that dates from 2014 to the current season.
And each of the last 3 races on drafting tracks ended with a last lap pass. That's tied for the longest ever streak of a last lap pass on these drafting style tracks.
Okay, now keep in mind, Kyle Larson's 4 top 5 finishes in drafting tracks came in the last 4 races.
And Front Row Motorsports, they won the pole for 6 of the last 8 races on drafting tracks, Michael McDowell having won 5 of those poles.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
I knew they went on a streak.
Yeah, he is. Denny Hamlin's 6 top 2 finishes of 2025 are tied for his most through 17 races, 2020 being the other season.
And speaking of Denny Hamlin, he right now ranks 3rd in the regular season points despite missing that race in Mexico City where he stayed home with the baby.
Chase Elliott finished top 5 in the last 2 races. That's his longest streak of top 5s so far this season. So good news for Chase Elliott.
I don't want to get technical, but I thought you had to have 3 in a row for it to be a streak. But now, Joey Logano is going to be making his 450th career Cup Series start. It'll be with Team Penske at Atlanta as he joins Rusty Wallace as the only 2 drivers to reach this milestone with the organization. Now, Logano, if you didn't know this, lived in the condos at Atlanta when he was younger. I know he talks about that a lot.
Okay, now 3 drivers have won their 450th Cup start. Kyle Busch did it at Bristol in 2017, Jimmy Johnson in 2014 at Michigan, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. in 2012, also at Michigan.
We talked about Tyler Reddick being involved in that matchup with Kyle Larson. He's going to make his 200th career Cup Series start this weekend. 4 drivers have won in their 200th start. Most recently, it was Kevin Harvick at Watkins Glen in 2006.
All right. Ryan Preece is just below the bubble here. He's the first driver outside of the playoffs on points. He's 20 points back. Ryan Newman is the only driver to point into the playoffs in the final 9 races during the stage era from more than 3 points back. He was 20 points back in 2019 following race number 17, while also driving for Roush. Kind of a coinkydink there.
I was thinking that. I wasn't sure if he was with Roush, but it did confirm it, so I thought that was kind of coincidental. Now, Chris Buescher finished top 10 in the last 3 races. His longest Cup Series top 10 streak is 4 races, so he's looking to tie that this weekend at Echo Park.
Indeed. He wants to also secure his spot in the playoffs. This season has produced 412 total lead changes at the start-finish line, the 6th most through 17 races of a season in the modern era that runs from 1972 to the current year. The record, of course, is 439, and that was set in 2011.
And 12 different Cup Series pole winners in 2025 is tied with 1997, 2010, 11, and 12 for the series most in the modern era. And the modern era starts in 1972, running through this current season of 2025.
And 11 different Cup Series winners in 2025. That's tied for the 3rd most in the modern era, 1972 to the current year. The record is 14 different winners through 17 races, and that was set going all the way back to 2003, Jay.
We're going to go into trying to understanding the in-season challenge. I know we have been talking about it and going to talk about it some more, but to break it down, we had the top 32 driver in points following Nashville were eligible. 4 drivers of the chartered teams, Shane Van Gisbergen and Cole Custer, Riley Herbst, and Cody Ware, failed to qualify among those full-time drivers. Now, 3 races, Michigan, Mexico City, and Pocono, established the seeding for the challenge based on the best driver finishing position over those 3 races. Tiebreakers were decided by the second best finish and then the third best finish among those 3 races. Now, the first of the 5 races for this in-season challenge is going to be at Atlanta, Echo Park Speedway, with drivers competing in a bracket-style tournament until the final 2 drivers face off in the finale at Indianapolis, with the best finishing driver winning $1 million. Now, in addition, and I know that we're going to get into this maybe a little later, but I'm sure if you're any kind of gambler or engaged in it, fantasy, the NASCAR fantasy game puts fans in control of projecting the winners in each round. They can complete a perfect bracket and win $1 million, just like the winning driver of the in-season challenge. So additional prizes are also awarded to top finishing performers. Again, now the seating is complete, and I don't have one handy as far as the matchups. I know the number 1 seed here, and that had started in the top left corner there of the bracket Sharon's got up. It'll be Denny Hamlin versus Ty Dillon. And again, doesn't matter where they finish. It is just a matter of whether you beat that driver, finish ahead of that driver that you're matched up with. So number 1 seed was Denny Hamlin. Number 32, Ty Dillon. Going down, number 2 would be Chase Briscoe versus Noah Gragson. The 3rd seed was Chris Buescher. We talked about that. He's having a battle in the playoffs to get into the NASCAR playoffs. Again, this has no bearing. How do I say this? This is just an additional in-season challenge of that. If they win a race, obviously they advance, but that also secures their spot in the playoffs. And we'll talk about that a little bit. I heard more from different drivers and crew chiefs on their strategy. But anyway, Chris Buescher versus Todd Gilliland. Then you got Christopher Bell matched up against Ricky Stenhouse Jr. That's certainly an interesting one. I know we talked about Bell being the winner in the spring. However, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. drafting style tracks kind of favor his style of racing. Then you got number 5 is Chase Elliott against Austin Dillon. I'm looking for number 6. There we go. Ty Gibbs versus Justin Haley. Ryan Blaney versus Carson Hocevar. This is one I told Sharon. That one's a big matchup for me. Hocevar finished 2nd in the spring. Blaney had a fast car and got a top 10. But again, it's a matter of who beats who and advances. The number 8, Alex Bowman versus Joey Logano. This is a tough one here. Number 9 is Bubba Wallace going against number 24, Daniel Suarez. Suarez involved in the 3 wide finish there 2 years ago. That's an interesting matchup. 10, we talked about this one, Kyle Larson versus Tyler Reddick, who's number 23. Another great one. Possibilities. Michael McDowell versus AJ Allmendinger. And Allmendinger has a good history at Atlanta, but we talked about Michael McDowell and the speed they've shown. Number 12 would be John Hunter Nemechek and Josh Berry. That one was a tough one, I think, anyway. 13 is Ross Chastain against number 20, Eric Jones. 14 is Zane Smith. 19 is Austin Cindric. Then move up to the top part. Number 15 is Ryan Preece against number 18, William Byron. Tell you what, right now I show Byron favored, but if Preece were to get through this first one, he could go on a tear and end up towards the top of the bracket. 16, this one was the one I actually flip-flopped on. 16 and 17, both right in the middle of these 32 drivers, Brad Keselowski and Kyle Busch. And I said I was swayed one way, and we just read some stats on Kyle Busch with RCR. Now I'm kind of swayed back the other way. I'm going to put my hands up in the air and go, I don't know.
Well, here's the good news, Jay. Later on today, our new Fan for Racing crew member, Taz, yourself, and I are all going to get together, and we're going to go over the matchups and give our fantasy previews for the in-season challenge. So keep your eye out for that. That's going to be a separate video, and I can't wait. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
It is, but now I'm a little concerned. I've already been swayed back and forth a couple of times, and now I got you and Taz going to sway me again. I'll be like, my head's going to explode. But that's the great thing about this in-season challenge. I know they compare it a lot to the NCAA March Madness bracket, but the more I think about it anyway, it's so much more complex. In basketball, everybody's on the same style of court. It's the team versus the team. Here, you got the car could have a parts failure. Other drivers could make a mistake. You get wrapped up in it. The type of track you're running on factors in. I mean, just so much going on. It's not a straight up one driver over the other. I know the bracket shows that, and it is who finishes better, but so many things outside of their control that factor in. It's just unbelievable. So, going to be a lot of fun. It says $1 million for a perfect bracket. I want to meet the person that gets the perfect bracket.
Me too. The in-season challenge adds spice to a return to Echo Park Speedway this season. It's the final weekend of June. It will be one of first when it comes to NASCAR racing, Jay.
It is, and this is for the first time. The Cup Series will race at a venue for the second time as well. Though in the interim, Atlanta Motor Speedway has acquired a new name. I know I stressed this, and I got a pop-up ad that won't go away, but it is now known as Echo Park Speedway. That happened just in the last couple of weeks.
Yes, it did. And after a stellar 5-race run on Amazon Prime Video, the Cup Series now shifts to TNT Sports. Though Dale Earnhardt Jr., Steve Letarte, Adam Alexander all remain in the broadcast booth and bring continuity to TNT's 5 races coming up, starting at Atlanta.
And that move with TNT Sports coincides with the debut of this in-season challenge for the Cup Series. Again, that pits the 32 drivers in head-to-head matchups, starting with this Saturday night's Quaker State 400 at Echo Park Speedway.
The in-season challenge continues throughout the TNT portion of the schedule, reducing the field by half each week until 2 drivers remain to compete for $1 million winner's prize in the championship round on July 27th at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, one of our crown jewels in NASCAR.
And here's one of the things I was talking about of factors that isn't just about the head-to-head matchup. Racing conditions on Saturday promise to be quite different from the 50-degree temperatures that greeted drivers on February 23rd when race winner Christopher Bell nosed ahead of Carson Hocevar before the caution froze to the field on the final lap. So there again, we say, oh, Christopher Bell won there in the spring. Guess what? Temperatures are different. Track is different. Exactly.
Though the Quaker State 400 will take place under the lights, temperatures are expected to remain in the 80s until nightfall. That results in a hot, slick track that will challenge drivers to maintain order in a close quarters draft style of racing that is a byproduct of the super speedway competition package in use at Echo Park Speedway since its repaving and reconfiguration in 2022. I tell you, it's going to make things exciting. I love nighttime racing anyway.
Well, and then factor in again, this is just $1 million. That's a lot of money, in-season challenge, but the big picture, there's 9 races left in the Cup Series regular season, so Atlanta presents the opportunity for drivers to secure a spot in the postseason with the victory. Now, though conventional wisdom says the pool of potential winners expands in a super speedway setting, certain drivers still tend to appear consistently at the front of the field. And one of those is Joey Logano, who won last year's second race, which at that time was held in September.
Another is 2-time Daytona 500 champion William Byron. He won at Echo Park in both 22 and 23. So he could be one to watch this weekend. And he's in an interesting matchup in that in-season challenge.
He is indeed. Now, Byron, who hasn't won since claiming his second straight Daytona 500 in February, could use a swing of good fortune this weekend. He wrecked what was arguably the fastest car in the field at Pocono during qualifying and then finished 27th in the race after repairs to the car.
And this is what I was talking about, the interesting matchup with William Byron. He faces Ryan Preece, another adept speedway racer, in the opening round of the in-season challenge. Denny Hamlin, who has finished first and second in his last two starts, is the top seed in the bracket, and he's paired against the 32nd seed, Ty Dillon, in his first round. So Ryan Preece is fighting to be in the playoffs. So he's below the cutoff line, and to have to face the number one in the series and point standings is really going to be an interesting matchup.
And I know people may look at it and be like, well, you're just not a Denny Hamlin fan. And I'm not particularly, but I just want to point out some facts. We look back to Texas. Denny Hamlin had a blown motor. Number one seed or not, he has a blown motor at this race. Your 32nd place, Ty Dillon, advances in this tournament. So something like that, again, it's just a factor and it's a truth. Could happen to any one of the drivers. This is one of those of you want to have the most consistent 5 race stretches of your career to get through this in-season challenge.
That is the truth. So do watch for more, because as we mentioned, we announced it right here in the Cup Series preview. We are doing an in-season fantasy pick show here on Fanfare Racing Radio with myself, Jay, and our newcomer, Taz, is going to be joining us. So watch for that to be coming out later today. We finished all of our previews for the weekend, and those will be coming out as well. And then Monday, we'll be back to do all of our reviews of the racing at Atlanta and at Echo Park Speedway and Lime Rock Park. So we also have our live stream on Monday night at 10 o'clock Eastern time for the Hot Topic Sound Off, where Jay, Chris, and I sit down and talk about all the hottest topics. And we've already got a big list that is building, Jay.
Oh, most certainly. There's a lot of things brewing. I know I saw a couple of new things out that I already have on a list from Monday night. So certainly we're going to have some interesting things to talk about with the new track of Lime Rock for the Truck Series and the ARCA Series. So certainly going to be an entertaining night come Monday night.
Gives me chills. Okay, well, thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We do appreciate it. And we will see you in our next video, which is going to be our in-season challenge fantasy picks. So stay tuned for that.
All right. Enjoy the weekend.